Good afternoon and welcome back to Football League World TV. We've got our Wednesday night preview show coming up for you within the next half an hour where we're going to be looking at the 4 championship fixtures taking place tonight up and down the country. I'm your host, Alfie Burns, and I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague, Toby Wilding, who I've not seen since he's been on annual leave. How are you getting on, Toby?
Yeah, good, thanks. Really enjoying being back into the season. A bit nervous, as I always am on match days, which perhaps says a bit about my priorities, but other than that, all is well.
Yeah, it's been a great start for your club, Blackburn, so it's been a nice transition for you back onto the website and onto the channel. We're streaming across Facebook, YouTube and Twitter as always, so if you are joining us and want to get involved in the comments, please do. We'll look to get your comments up on the show. We want some score predictions from you, and we'll be chipping in with our score predictions as well. First game we're going to look at tonight is between Stoke and Middlesbrough at the Bet365 Stadium. We'll start with the home side, Stoke. It's been a little bit of a slow start for them this season, and they were beaten 3-1 by Huddersfield Town on the weekend gone by. That was a game of fine margins, including Dwight Gale's goal that was ruled out for offside. That was just before Huddersfield took the lead, so it's safe to say that Stoke were a little bit unlucky in this game. Toby, where do you think Stoke are with regards to their season? It has been quite slow, some positives, some negatives.
Yeah, I think that's been a really frustrating one for the Potters at the weekend. I mean, I think we spoke about it in the lead up to the season, didn't we, with how sort of below par the Potters ended up being last season with that 14th place finish. There was sort of that sense, wasn't there, that a stuttering or not a convincing start to this campaign could really sort of put the pressure on Michael O'Neill, and we haven't again seen that consistency from the Potters. So you imagine that he's going to start to increase quite considerably if they don't pick something up soon, and especially when you sort of consider the nature of that defeat. And obviously Huddersfield, we all know how good they were last season, but when you look at the poor start they themselves have had to the current campaign, it sort of almost feels like you could argue that is an opportunity missed for Stoke not to have picked something up from that game. And so as you say, that is only going to heap pressure more onto Michael O'Neill and his side. Although that being said, as you touch on the fine margins, I think there will be an element of they are trying to look at that and sort of keep in mind that things could have been very different. As you say, the Dwight Gale disallowed goal, the Lewis Baker penalty miss or penalty save, if you want to give the credit to Lee Nichols, as you probably should. So I think that they themselves will be trying to focus on sort of the positives from that and how different things could have been. But definitely with the way the season has started for them, you do get the feeling that the pressure might already be building a little bit on Michael O'Neill, and that really does put a lot of emphasis on the importance of this game for him and for Stoke.
Yeah, let's just talk about Dwight Gale then. A few half chances against Huddersfield at the weekend, and obviously the goal that was ruled out, it was a really tight offside call that Michael O'Neill did feel was onside. He's not scored yet, but we know how clinical he can be at this level. Whether that starts tonight against Middlesbrough, it remains to be seen. But how important is it for Stoke that Gale gets in and amongst the goals?
Oh, it's massive for Stoke, in my opinion. I think, again, going back to last season, that was a big issue for them, not really having someone who could get those consistent goals week in, week out. And I think when they brought Gale in, you sort of felt that was that sort of statement of intent, signing the player that they were going to be putting their hopes on to be that man who was going to be firing them in on a regular basis. Certainly, you could understand that given the sort of form he's shown in the Championship before. So to have him starting fast, he's going to be really important. It obviously eases some of the nerves for Stoke around where those goals are going to come from, but also it will lift the pressure on Gale himself. The sooner he starts scoring, the sooner the confidence comes back and his goal scoring touch will start to gradually come back as well. Because I guess it is worth remembering it has been some time since he was playing regularly in the Championship. He has been a bit of a bit part player really for Newcastle over the past couple of seasons. So there might well be a bit of a period here where he needs to get used to sort of the demands of playing so regularly again, certainly in a league as challenging as the Championship. So there's a lot to consider there that he's going to come into play and has to be factored in when you're looking at Gale. But absolutely, given what he has been signed for and what is expected of him, it's so important for him to start scoring sooner rather than later, both from his individual perspective and for the club as a whole.
Their opponents tonight then, Stoke and Middlesbrough. They've picked up just 2 points from their opening 3 fixtures so far this season. It's been said on this channel before, but it feels like it's been a little bit of an underwhelming start for Chris Wilder and everybody at the Riverside Stadium. Really, one man who hasn't been underwhelming though is Chuba Akpom. He's been in great form, Toby, hasn't he? And is that something that you can see continuing tonight against Stoke?
Yeah, why not? I mean, I think you sort of look at Akpom and with the loan spell he had last season, and sort of the talk of so many new strikers that Wilder wanted to add to his Middlesbrough squad. It sort of, it seemed like his future at the Riverside, even with that loan coming to an end this summer, was far from certain. But the way he started the campaign, it does feel like he has to be playing his way back into contention. And when you sort of look at the goals he's scoring, the positions he's getting himself into, they are the right ones. And if he keeps doing that, you feel the chances are going to come in. Right now, he must be absolutely brimming with confidence that any opportunity he's got, he's going to put away. And while Middlesbrough are continuing to search for strikers, and he's making the impact that he is, he simply has to start. And the more he does start and keeps producing this form, the harder it's going to be to justify dropping him. And if he can do that, then not only does it cement his place in the side, but it could potentially, end up saving Middlesbrough a bit of money, or opening up funds for them to divert to add into it another position instead, because he's doing the job that a new centre forward might have done had they had to go out and sign him. So that could end up being a really useful start to the season for Borough from Akpom if he can maintain that. Let's get your prediction for this game then, Stoke versus Middlesbrough. Oh, it does feel like a tight one, as you say. Two clubs that are struggling for consistency at the minute, but I do just sort of get that feeling with Middlesbrough. They were my pick from the start of the season, and you do feel like the game they gave a strong Sheffield United side at the weekend, and the goals that are coming, I think they might just have the edge here. So I'll go for a 1-0 Middlesbrough. Yeah, I'm sort of with you there. I think that the result for Middlesbrough on Sunday against Sheffield United and coming from behind twice is a good sign for them. So I'm going to go for them picking up their first win. I've gone 2-1 to Middlesbrough. Next up then, we're going to look at Toby's club, Blackburn Rovers. They head to Reading this evening, looking to maintain their perfect start and make it 4 from 4 in the Championship. We'll start with Reading before we come on to Blackburn. They are a real wounded animal. After a 4-0 loss to Rotherham, it was quite humiliating for them on the weekend gone by. They are returning home for a home fixture this evening against Blackburn, but that crowd is going to be on edge, isn't it, Toby? An early goal from Blackburn, and it could really turn quite sour there. Yeah, you do get that sense. I mean, you sort of look at the nature of that defeat at the weekend with the greatest of respect when you're up against a team who have just been promoted as Rotherham are. You reside in Reading's position where you sort of people are expecting you to be up against it a bit. That is the sort of game that you're going to have to target, and that people are going to be expecting you to aim to pick up 3 points from. So for it to go as badly wrong as it did for the Royals at the New York Stadium was absolutely disastrous for them. And it does mean that, it puts the pressure on them to really go out and right the wrongs in maybe games that aren't as obvious targets for them. And if that doesn't work out, then as you say, the nerves are going to be in again, because we don't know. Will Paul Ince stick with Joe Lumley if he does after that sort of what was a pretty horrible first half for him at Rotherham, and if that goes wrong and he has another sort of moment to forget, then that is really going to sort of add to that as well. There'll be sort of the murmurs from the stands of why hasn't he made that change there? I think there were calls for him to be changed at half time anyway on social media on Saturday. So there's a lot of sort of decisions that Paul Ince has got to make here, and that for me is a standout one, because as you say, I think Rovers, having seen what Rotherham did to Reading on Saturday, if they do start strong themselves, will really sense an opportunity with the sort of finishing that they've been showing recently to try and go out and do the same and put down another marker at the top of the table, and that is only going to put more pressure on Reading.
Let's talk Blackburn then. 3 from 3 already. What an opportunity to make it 4 from 4 tonight.
Well, yeah, it does look that way, doesn't it? As we say, with Reading very much a wounded animal and under pressure after such a demoralising defeat on Saturday. But as I sort of mentioned to you off air before we started, that is the sort of situation where Rovers have sometimes come unstuck in recent years, and they actually did that again the last time they went to Reading back in March. That when the Rovers were sort of just steadily still trying to really find their feet under Paul Ince after his appointment, and at that time that looked again like a real opportunity for Blackburn to pick up what would have been an important 3 points for them to keep their playoff hopes alive. At that point, they couldn't take it. Lost 1-0 to a Josh Laurent Thunderbolt. Obviously, he's moved on now, but it would be another sign of sort of the early progress that they could potentially look to be making under Yondal Thomason if they are able to avoid a repeat of that and take full advantage of this opportunity that looks to have been presented to them with a trip to a struggling Reading side.
You'd like to think, and I'm sure you'd like to think as a Blackburn fan, that they're still very active in the transfer window. Unfortunately, that means in terms of outgoings as well as incomings, Ben Brereton Diaz, who's just been up on your screen, never too far away from the headlines. You're expecting him to retain full focus and be involved despite recent speculation?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he's in the starting lineup tonight. I think Thomason has said right from the start of pre-season that if he is still on the squad list at Blackburn, then he will be playing. He's stuck to his guns with that so far, with Brereton Diaz starting all 3 league games. And I can't see that being any different tonight, because Brereton Diaz himself has been an absolute credit in the way he's approached these games. And amid that speculation around his future, he's still been absolutely sensational. I think you see with the couple of goals, he's scored 2 high-quality finishes, a brilliant assist as well on Sunday in the win over West Brom. So he's not let his form dip one bit, despite that sort of question about will he be here and does he need to perhaps play it a bit safe and avoid an injury that might put off a move that could potentially materialise. We've seen none of that from him, and while he's playing it as well as he is, he absolutely has to start, particularly in, as you say, a game such as this where Rovers will be sensing an opportunity, and you've got to sort of play your best team to give yourself the best possible chance of taking that. And as I say, with the way he's playing at the minute, Brereton Diaz is easily part of any strongest Blackburn lineup right now, regardless of where his mind might be.
Let's get you for prediction for this game then, Toby. Reading versus Blackburn.
Yeah, I never really like to sort of get too carried away when it comes to a Blackburn prediction or anything. But at the same time, I do feel like I have to back them, and certainly the starts to the season suggest that they should be favourites here. So I'll go for a 2-1 Rovers win.
Yeah, I've got a little bit more comfortable. I've got 2-0 Blackburn, but at this stage of the season, just can't back against them. Next game is a game that I will be attending this evening for Football League World, Sheffield United versus Sunderland at Bramall Lane. We'll start with the home side, whose form at Bramall Lane under Paul Heckingbottom has been exceptional, really, since he took charge last November. It was a real fortress for Heckingbottom during the 21-22 season, and they continued that with a home win against Millwall back on August the 6th. We've got an important double-header coming up this week against Sunderland and Blackburn at Bramall Lane. How important is it for Heckingbottom and his side, Toby, that they keep picking up home wins?
Yeah, it's massive, isn't it? I think, as you say there, it's been absolutely crucial to Sheffield United since he took over, and you get the feeling that sort of continuing that will be a big part in sort of helping them towards the top six spot that they'll surely be aiming for again this season. And that, as you sort of say there, if with the two games they've got coming up here, sorry, that feels particularly significant because Sunderland have started really impressively, and for many, so they're certainly you feel going to be looking up rather than down, despite the fact they're only just back in the division. And Blackburn, as we've just been talking about, obviously top of the table at the minute. So it's potentially an opportunity with these two games for Sheffield United to really sort of put down a marker on their own soil against two sides who right now look like they will be having aspirations to challenge them for at least a playoff place. And I think as well, you sort of look at the win they have picked up already this season. That came against another side who, for me, should definitely be challenging for a top six spot this season in Millwall. So if they can sort of keep replicating those results on their own turf, they're going to give themselves a really big opportunity to sort of what they will feel is put wrong the right of what happened last season in the playoffs.
As for Sunderland, excuse me, sorry about that. As for Sunderland, they drew 2-2 with Queen's Park Rangers on the weekend gone by. Seny Dieng sealing the headlines there. Always a bit of a sucker punch when the opposition goalkeeper comes up the other end and scores in stoppage time. How do you think they're going to be feeling heading to Sheffield United? It's obviously a tough fixture, but they have still had quite a decent start to the season.
Yeah, I still think they'll be quite positive going into this one. As you say, it will have been really, really tough for them to take with how they missed out on the 3 points at the weekend. But there is still a lot of optimism. They've adapted really well to life back in the Championship. They're already showing with performances like that they can hold their own against well-established Championship teams as well. And I think the important thing for Sunderland too is they've got their two strikers scoring fast, haven't they? Ross Stewart and Ellis Sims both wasting no time in getting amongst the goals. And when they're scoring like that, you generally expect them to keep doing so they can be confident that those goals are going to continue to flow, and that is going to make them a threat for any team. So there's optimism there. And I think as well, as we touched on there with Sheffield United's home form, that sort of makes this the sort of game that Sunderland will relish, particularly with the sort of the backing you would expect themselves to bring. It should make for a really good atmosphere there at Bramall Lane, and that is going to really sort of lift both sets of players and really give them an extra edge going into this match. So it should be one that both teams are relishing playing for me.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching this game tonight. Let's get your prediction then, Toby.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be a tight one. As I say, with the way Sheffield United are at home and the goals that Sunderland are already getting out of their top two strikers, I can see this being an eventful one, but maybe Sheffield United might just edge it, maybe a 3-2 home.
Yeah, I can't see Sunderland not scoring, given the way, as you mentioned there, that the front two are playing at the minute, but I can't overlook how good Heckingbottom's side have been at Bramall Lane since he's taken charge. So I've gone for a little bit more convincing and a 3-1 Sheffield United victory. Final game then, West Brom versus Cardiff. We'll start with West Brom, who were beaten by your side Blackburn on Sunday afternoon. A game that Steve Bruce felt his side deserved something from, given the positivity around how West Brom have been playing and Bruce's comments there. Toby, you expecting them to bounce back tonight against Cardiff?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, if I am being completely honest, yeah, I can understand why Bruce himself would feel his side maybe earned something from the game. Certainly in terms of possession and territory, they did have Blackburn under the cosh for decent portions of the match. That being said, there was really, other than the goal, which took a huge deflection, which is probably the only reason it did go in. I think Thomas Kaminski would have saved it otherwise. There was only really a couple of chances that I can recall where West Brom maybe should have scored. There was a Dean Garner header at the back post that he put off target, and then a brilliant Kaminski save at point blank range from Carl Grant late on. So it's one of that. They are playing well, but certainly they are going to need to start being more ruthless in terms of when they get into the final third, if they are going to bounce back from that. So there's definitely, again, sort of foundations there for them to build on, but that is going to be a massive thing for them if they can start to find that final ball or that final shot. Will be really important. I think that's probably emphasised in how much they are emphasising how much they are missing Daryl DK, obviously with his injuries, and again reinforcing the need to bring in another striker at the Hawthorns.
As for Cardiff, then, sort of going about the business quite quietly in the Championship, I'd say. I don't think they're making many headlines, but they were actually really, really good value for their 1-0 win against Birmingham in Saturday's lunchtime kickoff. They've had a really positive start to the season under Steve Morrison, haven't they, Toby?
Yeah, they have. I mean, I think you sort of looked at Cardiff's business and the extent of it this summer. I think there was certainly a sense that it was necessary after a pretty underwhelming campaign last time around. And I'm not sure if people expected it to be quite as extensive as it has turned out to be. And that inevitably kind of raised questions about whether that was the right approach for them to take. I mean, I think they could name an entire starting 11 purely out of signings made this summer. So at that point, there is always the question of, are they going to gel and settle in? But certainly the early signings are very encouraging in that sense. And it seems like they are settling quite well together. So yeah, you do have to be sort of encouraged from a Cardiff City perspective. It does look as though they are certainly moving in the right direction now, and this is sort of very much becoming Steve Morrison's side. So that too is an exciting one for them. You know, he's finally getting the chance to really put his mark on this team, and it looks as though it could go quite well for them with how they've gone so far. So yeah, after a bit of frustration last season, it does seem as though things are moving certainly more positively for Cardiff, and that should make them a big challenge for West Brom tonight.
Let's get your prediction for this game then, Toby. West Brom versus Cardiff.
Yeah, as I've sort of been saying, I think West Brom will pose Cardiff problems, but right now they don't look to be taking enough chances, and Cardiff themselves, I think, have got enough to grind out something here, so I'm going to go 1-1.
Yeah, I think this will be a tight game. I've gone with home advantage, but this scoreline could quite easily be the other way. I've gone 1-0 to West Brom, but expecting a really tight game where Cardiff come out with a lot of credit once more. That concludes our look at tonight's Championship fixtures. Thanks to everybody that's joined us across Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, and thanks to you as well, Toby, for joining me on the channel. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to be looking back on what's gone on across the EFL with our midweek review, as well as bringing you the latest transfer headlines in the EFL transfer zone. All that before we then quickly turn our attention to the weekend of action in the EFL. Fixtures come in thick and fast, so enjoy the football whilst it's on, and we'll see you again soon.